All-stars, all winners, second chancers, game changers, internet. My name is Peridiam, and let's talk about the 5 Survivor seasons that changed the game. Survivor has been around for a long time now, over 2 decades, with over 40 seasons and lots of iterations to its formula, although remarkably still the same host. And in lieu of this new era of the show with weird idol chants and hourglass props, I think it's time we take a look at the seasons that I think changed the game the most. For better or for worse. That's up for you to decide. Before I get into it, I want to list a few honorable mentions, seasons that I almost put in the top 5, but decided not to. Seasons such as Guatemala, Season 11, with the introduction of the idol and the first time returning players mingled with new players. The idol itself is a massive change, and I can see why some would want me to include it. There's also Season 6, the Amazon, particularly with Rob Sesternino, who redefined the idea of sticking to one alliance. Doing what was best for you in any given episode became a new idea that was successful, the individual ahead of the group. I also almost included Season 2, the Australian Outback, for building upon Season 1, managing to go in and play with a strategy whilst also being cognizant of the morality of the game. And then one final honorable mention is simply the first season, Borneo, because, well, it set the entire stage for the game to be played. That said, it had no choice. It's like bragging about being born first. Season 1 more so birthed the game than I would say changed it. It defined the show as even being a game, so really, if anything, we're looking at seasons that went beyond the first one and changed that original template. Here's number 5. The number 5 season that changed the game of Survivor goes to, in my opinion, Season 16, Survivor Micronesia, Fans versus Favorites. Now, I'm a big fan of this season. It was one of my early favorites when I first got into the show a long time ago, but after having rewatched most of the entire series of Survivor over the years, there is a marked difference between this season and every season before it. Up to this season, most of the time the producers and the players attempt to shy away from devious gameplay being something to celebrate. It's part of the show, and it definitely isn't necessarily an outright bad thing, but it's not something the producers like to lean into. The show just really loves its heroes. We're looking at King Earl, the I-24 comeback with Yul and Ozzy, Cirie and Terry, Tom Westman, and so on. We did get Todd in Season 15 in China right before Micronesia, but James really was the star of that season, and it was his dumb move of not playing the idols that was a precursor for what Season 16 changes to the game. Because the devious big brain gameplay in Micronesia is in full force. Right away, the Favorites tribe hit the beach running. The survival element is almost trivial. And why wouldn't it be? They're returning players, but it's a noticeable difference how much they ignore it. The season is chock full of blindsides one after the other. Even the Fans tribe pull off several, and it turns the season into being all about the cutthroat strategy across the board. Blindsides are celebrated. Laughing at the dummies who just don't play their idols is a staple. That's commonplace today, but it starts here. How can some people be so bad at this? And I think it's a huge tonal shift for the entirety of the show and the game. Not to mention half the cast is comprised of Survivor watchers. Well, that's the idea anyway. From what I know, I believe 8 of the 10 players on the Fans tribe actually applied to be on it. 2 of them were recruited, meaning viewers are now reflected and acknowledged in the makeup of the game. It's pretty meta.
I just got a message in a bottle that said my grandma died, so.
Not falling for that one again. This is so much more pleasant than day 1 of last time. I know, right?
Second person voted out of Survivor Fans versus Favorites. Mary, need to bring me your torch.
Just at the jugular, flossing my teeth with his jugular.
11th person voted out of Survivor Fans versus Favorites, and the 3rd member of our jury. Jason, that's 4, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
Who would fall for that? Like, I feel stupid listening to you guys right now. I'm like,
Ozzy, Jason, and Eric.
So he'll,
We got him on a hook, we just gotta reel him in. It would be the ultimate Jedi mind trick.
I want to give individual immunity to Natalie.
You're crazy. You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever in the history of Survivor ever.
I think that is what you call a life lesson.
Number 4. Oh boy, this is the double whammy. So no surprise, but this is actually going to be a top 6 video, I guess. I have 2 seasons side by side here, and I wasn't really sure which goes above the other, so I'm going to talk about both of them in tandem. Number 4 is a combination of both season 34 Game Changers, gotta be here, and 35 Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. I almost jokingly didn't want to include Game Changers in this video, but I do think it's probably up here. These 2 seasons have a lot of similarities and overlap, so let's go over why they're both here. First up, the final 6 of Game Changers is wild. It is wild for the game, for the show, for everyone. That single round where Suri goes because she doesn't have an idol or an advantage or immunity that's a lot to take in. Eliminated by default. I believe that this single moment is the catalyst for the producers going all out moving forward, as Jeff has said that he loved this moment. He thought it was like the pinnacle of all the big moves that he's been going on about. This single moment justified the season to him and has very much shaped the game going forward. Beyond that, we also saw the open format Final Tribal Council change this season. For the first 33 seasons, we saw the usual jurors having a second in the spotlight. Now it's more of this open conversation. On one hand, this allows for more thorough discussion to happen. On the other, the focus of finding the winner is narrowed by the whole outwit, outplay, outlast paradigm that the producers began to push. For 33 seasons, that was a marketing slogan. Now it's a part of the game. Subjective criteria is becoming objective reality, and I think every season going forward is impacted by this. Combine that with season 35, Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, and oh boy, you got a whole plate. HHH shows many symptoms of what Game Changers brings to the table, but it needs to be said that the Final 4 Fire-Making Challenge is another huge alteration to the endgame of the show. Similar to Cook Islands with its Final 3, the forced fire-making changes the strategy of the endgame quite dramatically. Bigger threats now have to go even earlier to compensate for one less vote. Meanwhile, idols now last you until the Final 5, which means you can idol yourself to the Fire-Making Challenge, build a fire, and win. And that's exactly what we saw happen with Ben in this very season. Another massive change is how performative tribal councils become. Performing for the jury becomes front and center this season, with many tribals seeming almost like theater, explosive, over the top, dramatic. Live tribals from Game Changers get even louder and longer and cement them as a staple. Winning immunity at the challenge or what you do back at camp isn't as important now because the jury doesn't see it. But they see Ben, they see Dominic and Wendell, they see Rick Devens or Chris Underwood or Tony. More than anything though, the number of idols during HHH shoots to the moon. Survivor Databot on Reddit posted a chart that highlighted a remarkable increase in idols starting here. It does drop off a cliff with season 41 due to the Beware advantage stifling their playability, but still, that's wild, and it's worthy of being this high on the list.
Should we just church this up and get to the point? Because I'm not going home tonight.
You've also won an advantage. This is the last and perhaps biggest secret of the game. You will choose one person to sit.
That is not an advantage.
So, any votes cast for Ty, Aubrey, Sarah, Troyzan will not count, which means, Suri, it doesn't matter what votes are in the urn. This is a historic tribal council. You become the first person in 34 seasons to be voted out simply because there literally is no other choice.
It's bittersweet. However, I'm going out in grand style. It never happened before, and it just makes this experience that much more special for me. The tribe has spoken. Thank
Time for you to go. Thank you, sir.
Number 3 is going way back. We're going old school with season 4 Marquesas. A lot of fans were probably expecting this, and I'm not going to leave you hanging. Marquesas is a massive early game contender for biggest game-changing season of all. And I won't bore you with all of the details, but between the Final 9 flip, where the underdogs for the first time ever changed the entire direction of a season, was massive. It proved that there are established pecking orders in any given alliance, and you need to be cognizant of where you stand, and what's more, you need to do something about it. Nalia, Pascal, and Kathy did. They flipped on Rotu, worked with V and Sean, and changed everything. And perhaps this was inevitable. At some point it would have happened, right? At some season in the show. But it happened here, and it didn't need to. It hadn't for 3 seasons then, and it didn't happen the season after. But simply showing it as a possibility is huge. And that was before idols and advantages were a thing. You've also got the infamous Purple Rock incident at the Final Four, which very much changed how the producers managed ties. You've got Boston Rob taking out Hunter early in the season, something you just wouldn't see. Hunter was supposed to be the prevailing alpha of that tribe. He was the provider, the leader, and Rob just snipes him.
But fear keeps people loyal. If they're afraid they have something to lose, then they'll do what they tell you to do. That's straight out of The Godfather. It's true.
And then you get Gabe Cade, one of the only remaining players in Survivor, who's just there for the experience of the adventure of living on an island carefree like a pagong. Gabe was taken out by John, his own tribe leader, and fittingly, he left us in an episode titled The End of Innocence. I think for some, Marquesas was just that.
If I'm used as a pawn for them to win and I'm on the jury and I have to vote for them and they took me and...
We'll find out.
I know, but they're gonna use us to get to the top. I need to have Pascal and Nalia experience some of this turmoil. A couple more pieces of turmoil and they see how people act.
I know I'm definitely next. I ain't come out for no vacation. I came out to bring home the bacon. All I can do is go out trying. I'm telling you the truth. I'm gonna talk to Kathy and I'm gonna talk to Nalia.
Nalia and Pascal, I think, are really supporting my success in this game and are really rooting for me. And knowing that you can rely upon those 2 people, I mean, it's like 2 free passes.
This is the order how it's gonna go.
That's my boy.
Me and you are gonna get anywhere towards the end. We have to do this. We would be fools not to. I'm not gonna go out 5th or 6th. We worked too hard.
The 8th person voted out, first member of our jury, John. John, the tribe has spoken.
Number 2, the second most game-changing season of Survivor is season 19, Samoa. It's here. It was always here, and there's an argument for it to be number 1. So, why is Survivor Samoa one of the most game-changing seasons ever? Well, in a word, Russell. In 2 words, Idol King. In 3 words, greatest of all time. There's a hyphen in there. Russell went all out, hyper-strategized. The producers took the gameplay presentation from Micronesia in season 16 and just turned it up to 11 with his promotion of Russell. And though he loses, understandably so, I think, the show puts him front and center as if to encourage the viewer and future players to root for his style, to be in awe of his game. And it works. To this day, many people will still look at Russell as a game changer, and it's kind of tough not to. Russell is almost inarguably the most active player through 19 seasons, and by far, he has the most screen time of anyone in Survivor history to this day. But more than that, idols are no longer underestimated after this season. They become a lot more threatening because of Samoa, and the strategy around the idol becomes paramount. This is something that we've seen every season to this day. Having the idol is like Willy Wonka's golden ticket, and players become dependent on it after they saw how Russell and the Foafoas managed to come from behind despite being down in numbers 8-4. Survivor Samoa was a major transitioning point from the adventure and the outdoorsy nature of the show to the scheming and the fixation on strategy being the main reason to tune in. We do get a bunch of scenes about how brutal the weather is, but it's contrasted with Russell laughing in the face of the elements. The producers use him to tell the audience to grow up. Everyone who's suffering is a baby. There's even a scene about how the rain hampers strategy. The outdoors is getting in the way of my show. Gone is the adventure of Earth's last Eden, or the trek on the dunes of the Brazilian highlands, and the transition is never starker than right here.
Trying to figure out strategy, but today, I mean, we're all cooped up in a shelter right now. I can't do much about it without other people hearing.
Well, you never know, man. They might all start sucking each other's thumbs, because they're just a bunch of babies. Hell yeah, I'm having fun. I'm out in the rain. This is how I want it to be. That sunny days we had for 9 days, I was like, man, this is too pretty. This is really no big deal. Matter of fact, this makes me stronger.
If anybody has the hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
I ain't finished playing just yet. Keep hope alive.
This is an idol. Any votes cast against Russell will not count. First vote. Russell does not count. Russell does not count. Russell, that's 3 votes Russell, none of them count. Russell does not count. Russell does not count. Russell does not count. Russell does not count. 8th person voted out of Survivor Samoa and the 2nd member of our jury. Kelly.
My work is done. It's like a painting, like a Picasso. And it's gonna be a pretty expensive sale. They write me a check for $1 million for this work.
And so we arrive at number 1. What I believe is the most game-changing season of Survivor. There's a lot to consider, but in the end, I have settled on season 31, Survivor Cambodia, Second Chance, at the top spot. And to make a long story short, I will just say this: gamebots. Gamebots everywhere. Strategy is absolutely tantamount to the excitement of this season. If you don't love the strategy of the returning players playing their heart out to win and redeem themselves, you're probably not gonna love this season that much. Cambodia introduces the hyper-fast gameplay that is seen in about every season of the show going forward. Not so much in season 32 Koh Rong, but that season was filmed before Cambodia and they hadn't watched Cambodia, even though it did also air after it. Cambodia loves to blindside the viewer, which was a narrative tool utilized just throughout all of it, hinging on the excitement of not knowing what was gonna happen and even why it was happening, emphasizing chaos over tribal dynamics. And I mean, I kind of get it here. It was a cast of returning players who knew the game well. It's arguably the most meta season of Survivor. Cambodia's players knew Survivor better than any previous season. And because of that, it was a hectic season with constant shifting alliances, a heightened sense of self-preservation, and votes that didn't have a lot of narrative buildup. Some had none. They formed on a whim in that episode. I almost get the sense rewatching it that the editors were overwhelmed. Similarly with Game Changers. So let me get this straight. You start with 2 tribes, then you switch into 3, then you go back to 2, and then you enter the largest merge ever with 13 All-Stars on one beach. Yeah, okay. It's starting to make sense. It's a wild ride. But what's most important here is that this pace becomes a norm going forward. If Rob Cesternino is to be credited with implementing the voting block strategy back in the post-merge of the Amazon in season 6, then Cambodia had an entire cast of Robs out there. And what's more, the producers loved it, and the fans loved it, and they celebrated it, and it's had a permanent, lasting impact on every season since. And because of that, I have it at number 1. And I think it's going to be the future of the show, potentially forever. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And now that we're over 10 seasons removed from it, and Survivor is still kicking it, I don't know if we need to.
From the beginning, it was clear this season would be like nothing we'd seen before.
It is a cluster expletive.
It is a thing of beauty. I love it.
I may be on the bottom, but I'm not ready to go home yet.
This is a hidden immunity item. Unbelievable.
Right, baby.
You've got to hit the ground running in New School Survivor.
Chaotic is putting it mild.
The perfect setup, what might just be one of the most unpredictable finishes in the history of Survivor. First time in 31 seasons, we have no votes cast for anybody. What the hell, Doug?
I think we're seeing an evolution in the way the entire game is played.
The winner of Survivor Second Chance, Jeremy.
I will say before we end the video that the cast of season 41 did slow the game down a bit, and I appreciated it even though the producers were doing everything in their power to do the opposite. It was a change of pace. I just wish that the game changes of it all, with the twists and the turns and the crazy stuff going on, wasn't worthy of earning its spot, potentially earning its spot in my top 5 or top 10 for this video. But who knows, maybe 10 seasons from now I'll look back, just like I'm doing with Cambodia, and have a different opinion. Either way, those are my top 5 or 6 Survivor seasons that changed the game. And I want to know now from you, what would your top 5 be for this topic? I think there's going to be a lot of unique lists that you can make here with good explanations for each of them. A big thank you to my patrons on the screen for, well, simply put, changing the game. You help keep the lights on, and without those, the game's over. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to push the boundaries with risky, game-changing moves on your way out. And I will see you in the next one once I get to the end by demanding the willingness to risk it all. What am I even saying?
Survivor is the most mentally challenging, physically demanding, and strategically complex adventure game on television.
I think it adds a new dimension to the game, me going alphabetically.
The players have evolved the game by pushing the boundaries with risky, game-changing moves. Brilliant psychological manipulation.
Basically, I'm a badass and a manipulator of this game.
Innovative methods for gathering information.
I ain't never seen a move like this in Survivor history.
The guy throws himself under the bus.
And all-in million-dollar moves at Tribal Council.
Please trust the original lines we had. Nothing has changed.
Jenny, tribe spoke.
The gameplay has become so unpredictable that getting to the end now demands the willingness to risk it all.
I'm pretty good with mason jars and, canning stuff. I was just like, I'm gonna try to eat as much of that as I possibly can.
Next season, we are bringing together the most competitive group of players ever assembled to battle it out on the islands of Fiji.
I want to play Survivor to outwit and outplay people. I don't want to play Survivor to survive in the wilderness.
Join us this spring for Survivor Game Changers.
I actually have a headache. I can't even think straight.